Hello there, my friends. Welcome back to SilverFest and a particular section of today's activities that I think everyone's going to be excited about. I know I am. You've just heard a video from Keith Neumeyer of First Majestic Silver. You heard Jeff Clark talk about First Majestic Silver, and now we are quite honored to be joined by Keith Neumeyer of First Majestic Silver. So, Keith, great to have you with us here today. Thanks for joining into SilverFest, and how's everything going? Keith, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's being recorded, and you're now playing back. Everything you just said to me just is now being played back.
If you have another window open, you want to close that one out. You're probably getting an echo from watching SilverFest at the same time. And folks, everyone watching at home, as you know, we have our live chat, and Keith is here to take questions. Hopefully everybody can hear me all right. We'll get it sorted out.
Okay. How's that, Chris?
Yes. And are you able to hear me all right now?
Yeah. I've closed everything else on my end.
Well, that sounds good. And I guess I'm a little bit lucky to be hosting the conference. I get to toss the first question, although I know it's the same question everybody else has. I'll throw this one out, then start your questions in their chat there. But I heard you had a new investor this week, Keith. Some retail guy that bought a few shares, right?
Yeah, well, Eric and I go back a long ways, and he's invested in First Majestic several times before. It's not his first time. When he was at Sprott Asset Management and running the gold fund there, I think First Majestic was the largest silver investment they had in their fund for quite some time. This goes back to 06, 07, 08, and they did very well on that position. I know for a fact he's traded it a few times as well. So since then, and it's nice to have him on board. We're great to have his name as a shareholder on our registry, and he's obviously, we all know who Eric is, and he's an important player in the industry, and him and I are aligned on so many things when it comes to silver. So it's just fantastic to have him on board officially.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were excited to see and hear that news. And again, keep in mind, folks, there's certain things Keith's running the company. There's certain things we can and cannot ask. And although, Keith, to any degree you can comment, was there anything in particular that Eric chose this particular time or led to this decision now that you can share with us?
Well, I don't want to put words in Eric's mouth, but he has been peppering the silver space for quite some time, and he and I have been in discussions for the last couple of months for him to participate in First Majestic, and I think the fact that the stock has dreadfully underperformed many of the other silver stocks in the space over the last 6 months, I think it got more interesting to him. He's done quite well in the space over the last couple of quarters, and I think he's looking, at First Majestic to, start to trade as it normally does, in a silver bull market. So he's being somewhat opportune, I believe, quite frankly.
Yeah, maybe he watched Jeremy Powell's Jackson Hole speech and said, I might want to up the position after that. So, Keith, if you can see there in the chat room, there's one specific you see there's a tab that says stage, backstage, and event. You can put that on stage. Those are the people who are watching now. I'll pick a few questions. If you see anything in particular you'd like to address, I'm just going to try and stay out of the way here. Although one I know a lot of people are curious about, you can comment on the short position on First Majestic, where at least I wonder if it's not set up almost a similar dynamic with silver, where they'll sit there and then one day watch out, and anything you can comment there, or if you'd like to.
What are you referring to? The silver price, you mean?
Well, similar in how there's a short position that many feel has left the silver price unnaturally low. There's that large short position on First Majestic. Mm-hmm. And, any comments you might have on that?
I don't know. It's just I can't tell you why people are short First Majestic shares. I'm the founder, CEO. I think the stock is highly undervalued. I can't imagine people wanting to short First Majestic in an environment where silver is, going to do what I think it's going to do over the next couple of years. It seems like a pretty foolish trade to me, but I'm not on their side of the market, so it's not my money on that side of the trade. And if people want to do that, then that's just future buying anyways. We saw the big run in 2016. I think we started 2016 with somewhere just shy of 20 million shares short, and the stock went from, I think, $4 to $25 or something in that range, and the short position dropped to by 75% to around 4 to 5 million shares during that 6-month period. And when the market wakes up, because a lot of people I don't believe still think that this gold bull market is real. We see gold broke through 2000, it's corrected. A lot of people look at this gold bull market, as very much COVID related, but people are very short-sighted. They actually don't realize that this market started to deteriorate back in December 2018. That was really the time when the gold prices really started moving. So, we're almost close to 2-year run on gold. But people are so short-sighted. They think this whole run has got to do with COVID, and lo and behold, there's going to be some vaccine, or the economy is going to improve, or whatever it may be. The gold price is going to collapse and take silver with it. Well, I'm completely not in that camp. These metals are going a lot higher due to all the financial reasons why we all know when we talk about money printing and low interest rates and lack of supply. Silver supply is at its historic lows. So there's just a perfect storm in the silver and gold space which are going to propel these markets much higher. And I think when institutions figures that out, and does that mean gold's got to be 2,100? Does that mean silver's got to be $30 before they wake up? I don't know. I don't know what the magic number is, but there will be a point in time over the next few months, it could even be into 2021 after the election, where the institutional money is going to say, hey, this bull market is going to be here for the next 3, 4, 5 years. And that's when you're going to see a huge short covering rally on First Majestic, and the 40 million shares short that's currently on the stock will have to be covered. And, it's going to create some serious fireworks as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I love the way you phrased it. I mean, I wonder how someone initiates a short position and watches any of these Fed press conferences. It sounds kind of wild to me, but anyway, we will see how that plays out, and I appreciate you commenting on that. Bunch of questions about Mexico. People wonder about the cartels, the environment there, jurisdictional risk, and anything else that you're able to comment on that standpoint.
Yeah, Mexico's not as simple as it was, for sure. I put the company together, 18 years ago, back in 2003, and we didn't have a security force back then. Permitting was way easier, and things were obviously considerably cheaper too. But it was over the last 18 years. We now have a very large security force. We're always battling, with local communities, whether it's the union or whether it's the government. But it's like that around the world. If you compare Mexico to the other mining jurisdictions on the planet, Mexico remains really the best place to be as far as I'm concerned for any mining company. It's still, the talent pool in Mexico is very much there. There's very few companies families, in Mexico that aren't touched by mining. Most families have a miner somewhere in their family. It's right through the entire system, and it's great that way. It's getting workforce, getting talented people, and a lot of great engineers, a lot of great geologists, and for the most part, the Mexican government's pretty open. But it is more challenging. But we just have to, as a business, just learn to deal with the new challenges. I think we've done pretty good. The security is something we always have at the back of our mind, and we have to obviously take certain precautions, which we do. We have a very skilled workforce, and we have very few expats. Most of our talent is Mexican talent, and that's something we're very proud of.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what is the current status with, obviously, everything was shut down in Mexico for quite a while. Is everything back open, or is certain parts of it, or where do they stand with that?
Yeah, everything's back open. The challenge is really the in Mexico, the health department or Ministry of Health, or they deemed a group of individuals as a vulnerable group. So if you're over the age of 60, if you've got diabetes, if you're obese, if you've got heart issues and so on and so forth, you're allowed to not show up for work, and you can get full salary. Going back a couple of months, I think we had just under 500 people that were in that vulnerable category. And unfortunately, a lot of the older, individuals of 60 plus, that's a lot of your talent. And, that's a lot of your brain wealth. And those are mostly supervisors and managers and very senior people in the business who, the superintendents or supervisor and the general worker, relies on a day-to-day business for their direction for, wherever their jobs may be. So we're fortunate enough, we had about 100 workers come off that a vulnerable list in the last couple of weeks, as the states go from red to yellow, and they get different categories as the COVID situation dissipates. We're expecting and hoping that more of these people will start to come back to work over the next couple of quarters. So Q3 is not back to 100% yet, but we're hoping Q4 will be back to about 100%.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, and especially the way the media phrases things. I saw one article where the writer he viewed it as a negative going forward, that he's looking at the Q2 earnings when the mines are shut down, and I think another thing a lot of people would like to hear about, that you withheld production. I'm thinking, all right, mines were shut down. Of course, the Q2 number is going to look bad, but they withheld production. Now they're selling it at the higher price. It's fascinating the way humans interpret their own perspective on things. But in fact, even when I first started learning about what you were doing 8 or 9 years ago, and I saw someone who at least was seeing the same reality, whether we like it or not, some people don't want to hear the market's manipulated. I get it, but that was something, all right, here's an executive who's running his company is at least aware of it. And then sure enough, when that situation came up, that was a lot of shareholder value you created there. And any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, look, it's not the first time I've done it, but I just couldn't fathom selling silver at, $13, $14 an ounce. It just, it was shocking, and the way it happened so quickly. And we had inventory to sell. We have a business to run. We have bills to pay. We have employees to pay, and so on and so forth. So we had silver at $18 approximately, and $17, $18 approximately in Q1, and then all of a sudden the floor falls onto the silver price, and I just say it was a no-brainer for me. It just not only it was funny because our website price, we were selling, I forget exactly the price, but we were selling silver, I think, at about $17.50 on our website when silver dropped to about $13. And I got the girl that runs the department phoned me up, and Clarissa Sprott, Eric Sprott's daughter, contacted Jill and said, "Hey, look, you guys got to raise your price, because you're selling it too cheap." So we I said, okay, fine. So we put it up to $20, and silver still started going out the door, and then we even moved it up higher, to match Sprott's price on their website, that told me right there that the paper market that we were seeing over that couple of week period was so mismatched to reality that it would have been absolutely foolish for me to put actual metal into the hands of the banks at that price. It might as well just reached in my back pocket and handed them $4 or $5 million, because that's what I would have done. So I held off. We built an inventory up about forget what it reached up to, but it went well over 1 million ounces, made it close to 1.2 million ounces. And then finally silver started to get back up to the $18.50, $19 range. And, then we started liquidating that position. But, that trade alone saved our shareholders, considerable amount of money. And, that's money that went into our treasury and not into the hands of the banks. And I don't know why more mining executives don't do things like that, because, timing sales, is very critical. I've asked other CEOs in the business to actually stop sales completely for a 30-year period or 30-day period. And let's see what happens, to the system, I've been refused at every request I've ever made to any of the other executives in the sector. And I challenge everyone, though I know if you're selling concentrates, it's a bit of a challenge because of long-term contracts. But if you're selling dory bars, as we do, we have a lot of flexibility on how and when we could sell our metal, because it just sits in a warehouse until we decide to sell it. And the other miners out there have the same flexibility that we do. And I would challenge all of them to do exactly the same thing we do and pick a month. I don't care what month it is, and we'll all stop selling silver during that month. I'd love to see what would happen to the system.
I think there's a few hundred people watching right now who would also enjoy that. And although, Keith, I might point out that is one of the reasons why you're the only mining executive in the book I released, the big silver short, because I felt it was that important. And I think a lot of people, yes, they appreciate what you're doing with the company, but I've seen there's also just a different level of respect, because I know it's not easy to speak up about those things, especially in the position you're in. So I thank you for that. And I know a lot of people in here are appreciative. I also am going to brag on your behalf, because this was pretty incredible. If you remember when we were in the First Majestic booth back at the Sprott conference, gold, I think it just crossed 1900. And you said, I think we could see gold across 2000 in a couple of weeks. It may have even been the week after we were there. So now that you have the crystal ball and the hedge funds are calling you to find out what's happening with price, any updated thoughts on where we're at with the silver price and what you see happening there?
Well, I think we have to. There's a lot of chatter. I talked about the gold price getting through 2000, and the whole COVID and what's going to happen, with metal prices, assuming the whole COVID situation, starts to calm down. But there's also a view in the marketplace that the major markets, the S&P and the Dow, are going to go through some major correction prior to the election. And we know from history that generally speaking, when there's a big crash in the stock market, whether it's a correction or a crash, who knows? None of us have crystal balls, but that's not good for any stocks. It doesn't help the miners. It doesn't help any stocks, no matter what. And so I think there's a group of individuals out there as well that are waiting for a correction in the major market, waiting for the ultimate buy signal to start loading up on the GDX, GDXJ, and the variety of companies that make up those indexes. And so I think there's a ton of dough sitting on the sidelines right now, just hoping and praying that we're going to see a big correction in October for the major markets, and see that final dip in gold, see the final dip in silver and the equities, and that's going to be the big buy signal, which is going to propel this market to highs that all of us have been expecting for many years now. So it'll be interesting to see how the next few months unravel. If we don't see a crash, then this money, I think, will get impatient and will have to come into this market, because it is the better, one of the best performing markets in the financial over the since the beginning of the year, and that's going to continue. So the institutions can't afford to stay on the sidelines. As you see by Eric's investment just last week. But again, I don't have a crystal ball, but definitely what I do know, I'm very comfortable saying that you've got to be heavily invested in the gold and silver space. And that includes some of the miners, but just be selective. Pick the producers, go after the well-run mining companies that are with proven management teams.
Which brings up some of the questions we have, and I'm going to get to as many of these as we can.
I'm seeing all these questions coming up, and they're coming up so fast I can't even read them all.
Well, if you find one you like, I'll pick a few. Jay writes, what would your advice be for beginning investors regarding miners? What should they look for in a company? Any questions, any tips or red flags to watch out for?
Yeah, no, that's a good one, because, millennials, most of the investors that, and yourself, Chris, because we go to these conferences all the time, and at least we used to. Hopefully that'll start up again soon. But, for generally speaking, the investors in this space are, 50 plus or 60 plus, and they've been investing in gold and silver for most of their adult lives. And, we really need to see the millennials start to get interested in this sector, because in my view, over the next 5 to 10 years, this will be the best performing sector. But you have to be very cautious, because the mining sector, brings, unfortunately, a lot of, what I'd call used car salesmen. And a lot of the projects that, often get, thrown into public companies are often recirculated projects from, other failed attempts to, get assets up and running, or, or whatever. So, always first key is always go after management teams. The individuals, you can pick myself in that category if you wish. It's up to you. But, people like, Rob McEwen, Ross Beatty, there's a whole group of them that, are really solid, mining professionals. And if they're on the board of directors or in senior management, it's better than normal chance that these will be successful businesses. And then you look at look at jurisdiction. If you don't like China, then don't buy a company that's got a project in China. If you don't like Russia, don't buy a company with a project in Russia. Pick projects that are in jurisdictions that you like, the jurisdictions that you think that are easily permittable, can be brought into production, and so on. So, places like Nevada, Arizona, most parts of Canada, Mexico, some of South America, there are very mining friendly jurisdictions around the world that I would suggest that, investors should be focusing at. And then, if you stick to a couple of those key rationales or reasons, I think you'll do fine.
Well, that's advice.
Try to spread your portfolio out. Don't fill your portfolio with a bunch of expiration stocks. Because it's buy a broad. Buy 10 different companies.
That is some good advice. John Carpenter wants to let you know I greatly appreciate you speaking out as well. I believe on the manipulation. He made a lot of money with First Majestic. Nancy thinks you're more handsome than Bruce Willis and probably a whole lot smarter. I'll say yes to both of those. And Pepe has an interesting question here. Did any tech companies like Samsung come forward and ask for a direct contract? I've wondered some of these industrial users, when they sat there and watched the dealers get blown out over the last couple months, I wondered what they're thinking. Anything you can share on that?
We have had discussions with Samsung. They've been in my office. It was some time ago, but the direct buyers. I saw a question come up. Why don't we deal with direct buyers? Well, the direct buyers the banks really have control over the movement of metals worldwide, and I'm not sure if the miners are big enough, to ever break that system. We're not a bank. We're not JP Morgan. We're not HSBC. So, if you're producing copper or lead or zinc or silver or gold, the banks get their little chunk of that revenue. So they're the conduit because they're financing. Someone's got to finance this metal because it's once we produce it in the form of Dory bar, it takes some time for it to get to the actual end user. In the form of silver, it might go into a computer chip. It could go into a cell phone. It could go into an electric car. But that window is financed by the banks. So they hold that in their warehouses and they clip the premium off that. And it's not up to the mining companies. Don't have direct contracts or direct relationships with the end users. It's just never been done. Just for the fact that banks really control everything. So we can try to time our sales, So we're trying to optimize the best price that we can get for our metal, and that's what I think we do a very good job doing. Some other companies, they don't really care; they just leave it all up to the banks, and then I don't want to name names, but I've seen, if you go look at mining companies' financial statements, and one of the things that I tend to look at when I'm measuring my own success is I look at the average selling price of the metal that they're producing over that quarter and measure it against the average selling price on the COMEX. And you'll be surprised to see how often mining companies are selling their metal for less than what the average COMEX price was for that previous quarter. It's actually a pretty shocking stat. You do that measurement on First Majestic, and you'll find it to be quite interesting and quite different than others out there.
Well, and I think that's something that folks appreciate. My friend Chris Mack is logged in, and he says you should buy out CCW in Canada with its outrageous high-grade silver. So,
CCW? Well, I'm not sure what CCW is.
Well, Chris Mack is a big mining stock fan. Interesting comment from Tracy. Buffett bought stock in a few Japanese companies that. If you have any comment on that one, it'd be interesting to hear.
Japanese. Well, the only Japanese company I know is Irving Gold. They're a gold mining company. I'm actually a shareholder of it. Is that what the reference was towards?
I believe he's invested with some silver mining companies or metals companies. I'm not quite familiar.
Yeah, there's only two Japanese companies I know of. One is Japan Gold, which I don't own, and I know very little bit about it, and the other one is called Irving, which Quinton Henning is on the board of directors, and he's obviously pretty well known geologist, so it's something I follow.
Okay, I have a couple of questions here about a possible silver dividend. That's something that could be an option in one day.
Yeah, look, we've talked about it. Well, first off, dividends, period. We've talked about dividends a lot just in the last couple of quarters. It's come up again in conversations at the board. I would love to pay a dividend. I've been pushing our board to pay a dividend for quite some time. And I think that, ultimately we will. As a significant shareholder myself, I would obviously benefit for a dividend, and I think that we would attract more institutional investors as well, because there are institutions out there that just simply won't buy stocks that don't pay dividends. So I think we'd open ourselves up to a whole brand new investor, and also would drive the shorts crazy, because 40 million shares short, all those shorts would have to pay the shorts a dividend, which increases their cost of holding that short position. And of course, that would be a benefit to the share price, because those shorts would likely, or for the most part, or at least part of them would end up covering their short. When it comes to paying in silver, it's very difficult to do. It's better for us just to pay cash and for that individual to go and just buy the silver themselves. For us to send out, we'd have to have an account with all our investors. There's 85,000 shareholders worldwide, so we'd have to basically have a storage system in place for 85,000 shareholders, because if it's less than an ounce, you couldn't deliver it. It'd be fractional, and if it's fractional ounces, let's call it your dividend is 10.3 ounces that year. Well, how do you get the 0.3? So how do you accumulate that? Do you accumulate in a bank account, or do you pay partly cash? It creates just we'd have to have an accounting staff, but behind the scenes, just managing such a scheme. So we've shied away from thinking about it just because it's so difficult to manage.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Although fortunately, Keith, if people get a cash dividend and they want to go, for example, to the First Majestic store, where they can get one of those super cool 10-gram silver cubes.
Yeah, those are my favorite. I love those.
How big is this? Like the size of a dice, or?
Yeah, a little bit smaller than a dice. Yeah, it'd be about half the size of a dice. So there's I think 17 in that, or no, 27. There's 270 grams. So there's 27 little cubes in that plastic box, and to hold them in your hand, it's the coolest thing to have this cool silver, in your hands. I love doing it. I've got a couple of them myself.
Well, I'm going to go shopping. When do we have a date coming up on the schedule? I've been wanting to get one of those, although fortunately, I guess the best news is that you guys have a booth here. I just checked in with my good friend Todd Anthony. He says that the booth is open. Keith, if you have any time and you'd like to come interact with anyone and take questions, obviously you're welcome there, and I'm sure people will be happy to hear from you. I am going to go ahead in your booth. I have this weird habit. I can't stop giving away silver, and we're going to go celebrate all the great news this past week, these past years, all that you stand for, Keith. And I appreciate all your support of what I've been doing as well. It was meant a lot to me that the first sponsor we had was you guys, which is really the first silver company that I've really followed for such a long time. It was a pleasure to have you in the book that I think is really opening people's eyes, and I thank you for all you've done.
Well, and thanks, Chris, for putting this conference together. It's you know, I'd prefer face-to-face, but, you know, this is a great alternative. And I see a couple of messages coming up and yes, we do offer shareholders a 50-cent discount on purchases. All you have to do is just prove that you've been a shareholder for, I think it's 2 or 3 months or something like that. And, you know, go to the website, buy some silver, and have a look around. We're shy on some of the products. We just got a shipment of 10-ounce and kilo bars and just last week from Scottsdale Mint. We started using Scottsdale for some of our production, and the quality of the work they do is pretty good. So I'm really happy with that work. And so it's great talking to all of you today. Just feel free to call us at any time, Todd Anthony or Mark Carruthers, and we're always willing and able to answer any of your questions.
Yeah, and judging by these comments, it looks like we're going to be keeping my friend Mark busy. It looks like everybody wants the darn silver cube. I hope someone doesn't corner the market on those before I get to the booth. Although, Keith, we'll look forward to seeing you in there. And thank you again so much for joining me here at SilverFest.
Yeah, it cost us a fortune to produce those things. So, you know, anyone wants to complain that they're expensive, they are expensive, but we're making no money on them. We're basically selling for cost. They were handmade. You can just imagine this. Sunshine Mint in Idaho made these things, and they actually drop the little granules of silver in these small little cubes for the exact weight of 10 grams, and they melt them into these cubes, and they hand stamp them, and they, you know, of course, they put them in these plastic containers. So it took us a year of design and complaining because they didn't want to do it. I forced them to do it. I was willing to pay all the costs it took to produce these dies and everything else because I was so determined I wanted these silver cubes. And so anyways, they're a great product. We don't make any money on them, but they're beautiful to have as part of your collection.
Yeah, plus when silver is $50 or $100, imagine your treasury investors, they're crying in their soup. You can invite them over, use them as some dice.
Yeah, that's right.
So, folks, come on into the First Majestic Silver booth, and I will be there. And Keith, thank you again so much for joining me, and we'll see you in the booth.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Chris. See ya.